They never come when you expect them. An army on the horizon is not a thunderclap. It is a storm gathering in silence. You hear of it in whispers carried by merchants, in the fearful stares of peasants who saw the banners in the distance. By the time the enemy is at your gates, it's too late to build. That is why every stone, every wall, every angle of a fortress must be planned in advance. A castle is not a house. It is a weapon, a war machine of stone and sweat. But to survive a siege, your enemy is not just a sword. It is hunger, thirst, fire, and despair. The strongest walls crumble when those within starve. The proudest towers fall when the morale of the men collapses. To build a castle that survives, you must first imagine yourself trapped inside it, surrounded by thousands of foes. No exit, no escape, weeks stretching into months. The castle must not only repel arrows and catapults, it must keep its people alive. This is not a game of beauty. Forget fairy tale spires and shining white towers. A true siege fortress is brutal, functional, and merciless. Every feature must have a purpose. A moat is not decoration. It is an obstacle to ladders, sappers, and fire. A wall is not a wall. It is a stage for murder. The gate is not an entrance. It is a trap, and the heart of the castle is not the great hall. It is the well, because when the arrows darken the sky and the food runs low, water is life. To survive, we must build with foresight, cunning, and cruelty. What follows is the blueprint of endurance, crafted in stone, fire, and fear. The first mistake is location. Too many lords, eager to display their wealth, built castles for beauty, on gentle plains near pleasant rivers, where a siege army could surround them like wolves around a lamb. No, your fortress must rise where the earth itself fights for you. High ground is your first ally. A steep hill forces the enemy to climb, while arrows rain down, sapping their strength before the first blow. A cliff face on one side means you only need to defend 3. If a river curls around the base, it becomes a natural moat, a shield that no engineer can erase. But high ground alone is not enough. You must think of supply. A castle cut off from farmland or trade routes starves itself before the enemy even arrives. Your people need grazing pastures, hidden storerooms, and secret roads to smuggle in food. A fortress that cannot eat is already dead. That is why the cleverest lords chose land where valleys could be farmed and forests harvested for timber, but where the castle itself loomed above like the fist of a god. The ground must also deny the enemy. Loose soil is a danger. Sappers can tunnel beneath your walls, collapsing them with fire and smoke. Rocky bedrock is better. Anchor your fortress in unbreakable stone. And always, always think of water. Without a natural spring or deep well, you will not last a month. Enemy armies knew this. They would poison rivers, divert streams, cut off access. But a hidden cistern inside the castle, that was survival. Choose wrongly, and your castle becomes a coffin. Choose wisely, and it becomes a mountain of defiance, where armies break like waves against a cliff. Walls are the bones of your fortress, but not all walls are equal. A foolish lord builds them high but thin, chasing grandeur over endurance. A wise builder thickens them, 10, 12, even 15 feet. So no ram can splinter them and no fire can eat through. Behind those walls, narrow walkways let defenders rain arrows while staying shielded. And the stone itself matters. Soft limestone cracks, sandstone crumbles, but granite stands like the gods themselves carved it to resist time. Yet a wall alone is not enough. Your enemy will come with ladders, with siege towers taller than your battlements. They will climb like ants, and once they crest the top, chaos spreads like fire. So your walls must not only stand, they must kill. Arrow slits carved into stone let defenders unleash volleys unseen. Murder holes hidden above gateways pour boiling water, oil, or even stones upon those foolish enough to enter. Battlements are not decoration. They are teeth meant to bite and tear. Still, walls are not unbroken lines. They must bend and twist, angled to create killing zones where invaders are trapped in crossfire. Towers jet outward, granting archers overlapping fields of fire. A straight wall is a weakness. An enemy can approach it directly. A staggered wall is a labyrinth of death. And never forget the second wall. Many castles fell because their lords trusted a single line of stone. But those who built consented defenses, an outer curtain, an inner curtain, and finally the keep, made attackers pay for every inch in blood. When the first wall breaks, defenders fall back, regroup, and fight harder. To take such a fortress is not a single battle. It is a war of attrition, fought step by step, wall by wall, life by life. The wall may stretch for miles, but the enemy knows the truth. Every fortress has a weak point. The gate, that single door, is both your invitation and your doom. It must be the strongest part of the castle, for it is where the battering ram will strike, where fire will burn hottest, where traitors may open the way. To build a gate is to build a trap. First, the doors. They must be layered with thick oak, reinforced with iron bands, heavy enough that a dozen men strain to move them, but even oak burns. So behind the wooden doors lies the portcullis, a great iron grid that drops like the fangs of a beast. One portcullis is safety. Two, with a space between, is execution. For the enemy breaks through the first, they enter a narrow killing ground, trapped as archers fire down from every angle. Above the gatehouse, the ceiling hides murder holes. Through them, defenders unleash boiling water, pitch, sand heated in fires until it scorches flesh from bone. The gate is not simply an opening. It is a meat grinder. Every step forward for the attacker is a step closer to death. But clever lords went further. They designed winding approaches, so rams could not gain speed. They dug moats before the gate, so siege towers could not roll near. They built barbicans, outer fortifications that forced the enemy to fight before even touching the main door. A castle's gate is not one line of defense. It is a gauntlet, and when the gate finally falls, as all things do, it reveals yet another wall behind it, because a castle that survives a siege is not built to hold the enemy out forever. It is built to make them bleed for every inch they dare to claim. Every castle has a heart, and it is not the hall of feasting nor the chambers of lords. It is the keep, the last stronghold, the place where defenders retreat when all else is lost. Imagine the siege dragging on for months. The outer wall has fallen. The gate is splintered. The courtyard is a graveyard of broken machines and corpses. Yet still, there is the keep, a tower of stone rising like defiance itself, daring the enemy to finish the job. The keep must be built like the bones of a mountain, walls twice as thick as the outer curtain. Windows almost non-existent, just arrow slits and narrow openings for light. Staircases spiraling upward in tight coils, always twisting clockwise, forcing attackers to climb with their sword arms pressed against the wall while defenders slash from above. Every level of the keep is a battlefield, every chamber a choke point. Even if the enemy breaches a door, they must pay for each floor in blood. But the keep is not only stone and mortar, it is survival. Within its walls are the deepest wells, the most secure storerooms, the hidden passages leading to secret tunnels beyond the castle walls. Some keeps even conceal escape routes, narrow shafts carved into bedrock, so the lord could flee while his men fought and died. To some, this was cowardice. To others, it was insurance. For a fallen lord could never rebuild, but a living one could raise armies anew. The keep is not comfort. It is claustrophobic, dark, suffocating. But that is its purpose. A place not of living, but of enduring. For when the world outside burns, the keep remains. And sometimes, that last stone tower is all that stands between a noble house and oblivion. The enemy outside your walls is only half the battle. The greater enemy is time. No fortress falls in a day. It falls when the grain runs out, when the barrels are dry, when the men grow thin and hollow-eyed. A true castle is not measured in stone, but in how many mouths it can feed through winter under siege. Food must be hidden everywhere, beneath floors, inside false walls, sealed in barrels of salt and honey. Grain is king. for it lasts the longest, but smoked meat, dried fish, and wheels of hard cheese sustain the body when months stretch into nightmares. Even so, food alone is nothing without water. A castle without a well is already dead. The enemy knows this, and their first move is often to cut rivers, poison streams, or dam lakes. That is why the clever lord sinks his well deep inside the keep, down to the veins of the earth. Some castles had hidden cisterns, channels carved into the rock to capture rain. With water, hope lives. Without it, the strongest walls crumble from within. But survival is not only material, it is psychological. Defenders must believe they can outlast the storm. That belief falters when rations grow thin. Bread shrinks, meat disappears, and whispers spread. Some castles resorted to feeding dogs, cats, even rats to the starving. There are darker tales still, of desperation so great that the defenders turn on each other. Thus, the true genius of a castle stores is not just abundance, but deception. Keep the granaries locked. Feed the men sparingly yet steadily. Hide reserves so that when despair grips their hearts, you can reveal more and hope returns. For in a siege, morale is food. A starving soldier who believes salvation is near will fight harder than a well-fed man who has already given up. Stone is strength, but fear is stronger. A castle that terrifies its besiegers can win battles without lifting a sword. That is why the best fortresses were not just walls, but machines of psychological warfare. Every feature was designed to break morale. Consider the moat, not just water, but sometimes lined with sharpened stakes, or filled with refuse and disease. Siege towers bogged down in mud, while arrows rained from above, or the killing field before the gate, angled so every step forward was met with a storm of crossfire. Castles whispered death into every corner. But some lords went further. Secret passages ran beneath walls, allowing defenders to sally forth in the night, burning siege engines or cutting throats before vanishing back into stone. False walls concealed hidden archers. Hollow towers lured attackers inside, only for trapdoors to open beneath their feet. Even the architecture lied. Doors smaller than they seemed, forcing invaders to crouch while defenders struck from above. And when the enemy did break through, they faced corridors designed like mazes, stairs spiraling so tightly that only one man could climb at a time. Imagine being in that narrow coil, pressed by the weight of the army behind you, while boiling oil poured from above and stone shattered bone. Even the bravest would falter. Fear is a weapon sharper than steel. For armies are not made of iron, but of men, and men can be broken. A castle that survives a siege is not merely defended by walls and supplies. It is defended by terror, by the knowledge that every step forward may be your last. In the end, a castle is not built to be invincible. Nothing is. History shows us that every fortress, no matter how mighty, can fall. Given enough time, enough fire, enough betrayal from within, even the strongest walls crumble. But a well-built castle does not measure its worth by permanence. It measures it by how long it can make the enemy suffer. To build a castle that survives a siege is to build a monument to patience and pain. It is a place where men learn that survival is not victory. It is endurance. The enemy will test your stone, your stomach, your spirit. And if you plan wisely, your fortress will outlast their hunger, their anger, their will. But remember this, a castle is not merely stone and mortar. It is people, the masons who carve the walls, the archers who line the battlements, the peasants who carry water and grain. Without them, even the strongest walls are hollow. With them, even crumbling ruins can resist. And so, the lesson is clear. To build a castle to survive a siege is not to chase beauty, but to embrace necessity. Thick walls, hidden wells, ruthless traps, endless patience. A fortress is a cage for your enemy, a sanctuary for your people, and a reminder that survival is the cruelest kind of victory. When the banners burn and the enemy retreats, when the gates creak open and the survivors stumble into the light, the castle still stands. Scarred, battered, but alive. And in that survival lies its true legacy. Not glory, not splendor, but defiance carved into stone.